Holy City Center Radio. It is episode number 40. Wow, we're just motoring right along week after week, and I'm so excited to be back. Thank you for joining yet again. We have an awesome show coming up for you. We have Sharon Graci, the co-founder and artistic director of Pure Theater, a contemporary theater located at 134 Cannon Street. And actually, they recently won the 2020 South Carolina Theater Association Theater of Distinction Award. So congratulations to them. I can't wait to learn more about what they're doing here in Charleston, give you some background about some of the programs they offer in addition to the performances. It's a great interview, so be sure to stick around for that. Not a lot to talk about at the top, so you won't have to wait too long for that great interview. Quick, just a recap for myself. We're recording this a little earlier than normal, so some other things may happen, and we'll have to save that for another episode. But at the time of recording this, we're pretty fresh off of Charleston Wine and Food. Another event is in the books after a year off due to the pandemic, and actually the one prior to that, the 2020 version, was, I think, the last big event many of us did here in Charleston before the pandemic kind of shut everything down. So it was nice to be back doing some familiar things. It was so good to see some faces that I just haven't seen in the 2 years, with the way the pandemic was and schedules and everything else. There was a lot of folks that, like acquaintances that I know from restaurants or PR firms or what have you. But it was so good to see some of them in person and kind of catch up a little bit. Just the weather was perfect. And it was just nice to kind of be doing something that felt like the before times. It was also great to meet some new faces as well, put some names to the email addresses and things with releases and, the things that go on with having a blog here in Charleston. So I did a few different events, was nice enough to have another media pass year where I could attend some different things, kind of get a taste, no pun intended, for the different offerings that they have. And it looked like, from an outside perspective, another successful year. A lot of people attending events. And I'm sure, we'll hear officially later, when Wine and Food releases their report they do every year. But it seemed like things went really well. Seemed like they bounced back. One thing that a few people noted, there was a lot more diversity of types of events, as well as diversity of the people at the forefront of the events, whether they're chefs, hosts, whatever it may be. So that was a nice welcome addition. From my own perspective, it also seemed like some of the crowds were more diverse than they were in the past. A lot of good things that came out of it. As usual, some grumbles here and there about it. Some events, sometimes people feel like there wasn't enough food or may not have been worth the price of admission. You're going to hear those every year. Very early assessment. Again, as an outsider with no details as far as how everything went, it seemed like things went pretty well for them. And I'm sure we'll talk more about it going forward. The only other piece of news I have relates to South Carolina District 1 congressional race. We always have been talking about Annie Andrews on the Democratic side and Nancy Mace and Katie Arrington on the Republican side. But a little-known candidate has dropped out, Tim Lewis, who just wasn't getting the same kind of traction as Annie Andrews on the Democratic side. He officially dropped out of the race on March 7th. He is the chairman of the Dorchester County Democratic Party, and he released a statement just saying, after basically, I'm not giving a direct quote here, just kind of giving you an overview of his release. But his team decided there wasn't a way forward for him, and he would be withdrawing, but will still, be advocating and doing things around town for the Democratic Party. So looks like Annie Andrews will be running unopposed, and then that means she will be facing either Mace, the incumbent, or Katie Arrington, the challenger. We'll see how that all plays out. All right, and that's it. Like I said, we're recording a little earlier, so I don't have a ton of stories this week, but that's okay because you're probably all here for the interview anyway. It's always the best part of the show, and I'm really excited to have our guest today, Sharon Graci, the co-founder and artistic director of Pure Theater, which is located at 134 Cannon Street. They are in the midst of their 19th season. And they have several upcoming performances, including Ben Butler, which has been running since February and will into this month. And then Honoria Quietly Drawing Strength from Her Truth will be running April to May. We'll get some more details about other upcoming productions, some of the programs that they offer in addition to the performances. And it should be a really good conversation. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. So here it is now, my interview with Sharon Graci. Joining me now is Sharon Graci, the co-founder and artistic director of Pure Theater, a contemporary theater located at 134 Cannon Street in downtown Charleston. So excited to learn more and chat about what's going on. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. I think the best way to get started is to, if you could, provide a little bit of background about yourself, just so people know a little bit more about you.
Sure. Well, as you said, I'm one of the co-founders of Pure Theater, and I'm currently its artistic director. Pure was founded all the way back in 2003 with the idea that we would produce contemporary theater, award-winning contemporary theater in Charleston, South Carolina. And that is what we have been doing for the past 19 seasons. In fact, we're celebrating our 20th season beginning in August of this coming year, 2022. So we're really excited about that.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, are you from Charleston area or?
I have been in South Carolina for multiple decades now, if I don't want to quite tell exactly how long, but I was born and raised in a little town outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in the South for a long time.
Yeah, you were saying, 20 years, and I'm like, I was about to wonder, they consider you a local yet? I know they're a little iffy about that because...
Exactly. I should just have it like guilt by association.
Yeah,
simply because we have 5 children, all of whom are Charlestonian. So if that counts for anything, we keep filling the good city of Charleston, South Carolina with lots of good people.
Yeah. I'm sure they'll give you a little bit of a pass, but I don't know. It's been tough. I've been here since 2007, and I still get some pushback when I say, "Oh yeah, I live in Charleston. I'm a local here." Like, I don't know. We're here creating a business, but it's tough.
Right.
But your kids won't have to worry about that. They are born and bred.
Not at all. Not at all. That's right.
So you grew up in Pennsylvania area, have been living in the South and South Carolina for a couple decades, as you said. How did you first get involved with theater? What drew you to it?
I am probably just may sound like a really common theme when I'm about to tell you. I have always been interested in it. I think I was really fortunate that my parents saw value in that it was something that I was interested in and passionate about. When I was young in middle school, they created some opportunities for me to begin taking acting lessons. And I think maybe I was in 7th grade, and I had done a few plays here and there while I was in school, in elementary school and then early middle school. But once I started studying acting, I just kind of stayed with it. I have a degree in theater. I went to school at Point Park University in Pittsburgh, and then eventually I would move south and finish my degree in the South. And then after that, I kind of made this hard right turn, and I went into corporate America for 6 years. For 6 years, I sold for Xerox, which to this day, I'm a huge fan of Xerox Corporation. I think they do some really incredible things. I was just probably the worst employee they ever had.
Yeah, I hear you there. I hear you.
I was not a good Xerox employee. In fact, I was always kind of gobsmacked at how expensive office equipment could actually be. More expensive than many people's homes. So I was always a little leery of that kind of investment in hardware and I don't know. But then after I left Xerox, I founded Charleston Children's Theater. So I did that for a few years, and when I met my husband, we founded Pure together. So he's my co-founder, Rodney Lee Rogers.
Nice.
So this is our little adventure in artistic happiness.
That's got to be nice to be able to do something with your husband that both of you are passionate about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're both trained as actors. So that is definitely a common dialogue there. Nice. For sure. Mm-hmm.
So what led you to create, you said first the Children's Theater and then Pure. Mm-hmm. Did you think there was, there's room for this here in Charleston at the time? Were there a lot of different companies? What made you decide, hey, I think there's something that, there's a need here for this?
Well, when I founded Charleston Children's Theater, it was more of there wasn't a just fully committed children's theater here. And when I was in school at Point Park University, they had a division of their company that just produced theater for young audiences. And I thought that was a really exciting and interesting opportunity because there wasn't one here in Charleston. And so I teamed up with my friend Keely Enright, who is the producing artistic director of Village Repertory Company, and we founded Charleston Children's Theater. And we made a go of it for several years. I did not want to go back into corporate America, so I think that was a super pragmatic decision to start a children's theater company, so I didn't have to just replicate my job in corporate America. I wanted to go back to my roots of working in theater. But I kind of realized that producing theater for young audiences was not really my cup of tea. So Rodney and I, when I met my husband, Rodney, we decided that we wanted opportunities to act in plays that we were really interested in acting in. And the best way to do that was to found our own theater company. And, I guess it must have worked because here we are 20 years later and it's still going strong and really thriving. So I think there's selfish reasons. That's why I started both those companies.
Hey, I get that. That's why I started Holy City Center as well. I was like, I just want to go do stuff and talk about it. That it works out. I mean, you've been doing it, like you said, for 20 years. So you don't have a business for 2 decades if you're not doing something right. And you said you've been doing really well. How did the pandemic, which obviously is still ongoing, how did it affect your business? How did you all manage to get through that?
Well, the first thing it did was, I think when I answer this, I'm going to say that the obvious tragedy of the pandemic, notwithstanding, and in complete consideration of the extreme loss of life and the tragedy that the pandemic has represented. It just goes without saying the heartbreak of what we've all been through globally. But what I think it did do is that it forced us all in one way or another, most of us anyway, to hit pause on whatever gerbil wheel we were on. And then some of us were thrust into the turbo gerbil wheel, especially if we were in healthcare, worked in healthcare. But for those of us who were kind of sent home, it caused us to hit pause and then provided us with this glorious opportunity to reflect and to look with fresh eyes on the circumstances in which we lived our lives on day in and day out. And that opportunity for me as a business person and as an artist was invaluable because it allowed us to have really deep conversations. It provided room for us to have deep conversations about where we were at the time, how we were going to get through the pandemic, how we were going to respond, and how we were going to continue to do what we're known for doing, which is building community and creating conversations through theater and exceptional theater experiences. So in response to the pandemic, we then immediately, in the midst of it, the tragedy of George Floyd happened, and Pure responded. We responded with online programming that took a look at race in America in 3 different plays, readings of 3 different plays over the course of 3 months in the summer of 2020. Immediately following that, we dipped our toes into what happens when we film our plays and make them available on demand. We did that for that whole next season of FY20 into 21, into June of 2021. And then in July of 21, we were able to begin to look at programming again in front of a live audience. So Pure but better. And I think from the bottom of my heart, that's what I'm most grateful for is that it's still pure theater. But we're better for having gone through what we went through. And we're excited about the technology that's now available in our industry that had the pandemic not happened, we never would have had at our disposal.
So it sounds like, and I've heard this from some other businesses as well. It kind of reinforced your belief that you were doing the right thing, that this is what you're passionate about and wanted to keep doing, but also at the same time helped you, try to obviously stay on your toes and adjust and become more modernized.
Absolutely. And, perfect example. So this Friday and Saturday, which is March 11th and 12th, we're actually simulcasting our work. We're starting a new series and launching a new series called Pure Live. And it takes those experiences of those Zoom play readings and those filmed performances, and it advances it one step further and says, theater is present tense. It is happening now. It is happening live. There's an urgency. There's an immediacy to the art form. There is an inherent risk in producing and consuming theater that is just irreplaceable. So we are moving as an organization to simulcasting each one of our plays going forward to the best of our ability. And our ability is actually pretty high. There's all kinds of organizations that have developed, companies that have come up during the pandemic that actually make that possible at a really high level. So we're really excited that technology is keeping pace with the ambitions of the art form. And the ability to scale something that prior to was really, really difficult to do, and do it in a way that maintains the best parts of live theater is really, really exciting to me.
That sounds great. Like a simulcast, I was thinking about as you're discussing it, is a great way, especially post-pandemic. This is a whole different world we're in, where a lot of people, even as things are relaxed as far as rules and mandates and all that, people are still a little iffy about doing certain events, or they're being a little more discerning with what they spend their money on, and it might not be an in-person thing. This is a great way for them to still experience theater from home until they're comfortable, or also, people who might be comfortable, they're just not sure. Sometimes I think people hear theater and they're like, oh, that might be stuffy, or it's not my cup of tea or whatever. And this is a great way for them to experience it from home and in the comfort, somewhere where they're, don't have those feelings necessarily. So I think that should be a great change for your business and any others that decide to do it.
Absolutely. And, when we produced in the summer, and we produced the Bearing Witness series, which was the 3-play reading in 2020, we had participants from Australia, from Argentina, from France, from Russia, from all over the globe, who watched the readings and participated in the talkbacks that followed each one of the readings. So it's really, really exciting when you look at the opportunity to share your work very broadly.
Yeah, I would imagine having gone from, downtown Charleston specific theater to having feedback from all these different countries and participants, that's got to be quite the experience for you all. And, something else you mentioned, I think a lot of people, when they think of theater, they're just thinking it's entertainment, which of course it is. And, not thinking outside that bubble. But I think based on some of the things you're saying, you all set out to not just have something for entertainment, but also productions that are educational and more, as you said, like, quote, in the moment. So in response to the George Floyd protests, you said you launched something. So it sounds like that's kind of a focus, and always has been for Pure Theater, is not just, hey, let's do this play or this performance because it's entertaining and fun, but it also might relate to something that's going on currently in this country or, in the world.
Absolutely. And, it's funny, right prior to us having the opportunity to chat, I was in a meeting and we were talking about Pure it's kind of a litmus test about what plays find their way onto our stage. And we make 3 promises to our patrons, to our audiences. And they are that we will only tell stories worth listening to. We will always strive for excellence. And we will always gift the audience something to talk about when they leave the theater. And those 3 things, those 3 promises conspire to create what I call a play's quality of why. Why would I ask you, Christian, to spend your time and your resources with me and with our company? Because we're making and keeping those 3 promises in the work that we do. And we are really inviting people in to experience what it means to be human, which, oh my gosh, it's so many things to be human today. And that's really what we're looking at is all the different ways in which we experience our humanity, the good, the bad, the celebratory, the heartbreaking, all of that comes together through this single art form that has survived through the millennia. And there's a reason for that it's important and it's urgent and it's meaningful. And it's never a stretch for an audience. The one thing people always feel like they can do is act. And if they won't go so far as to say, I feel like I'm an actor, I feel like I can act, they certainly will go so far as to say, yeah, I think I have a really good imagination. And that's what live performance is. That's what live theater is. It is just an act of imagination shared.
And now with all of that in mind, as far as the promises and what you want to do with each production, what do you have remaining for this 19th season, and what do we have planned for the 20th season that you can share with us?
Sure. Well, what's remaining is we'll close out Ben Butler, that has been delighting audiences since I guess January or February. I can't even remember now.
I think it was February.
Part of my brain is like, what month is it?
I hear you.
It's also not helping that February and March, they align on the same days of the week,
yes,
which has just been bizarre.
Every year it throws me off. I know.
Every year. It's just bizarre. So we follow up with a world premiere, and I think it's going to be our 27th or our 28th world premiere. I'm not entirely sure. By Clifton Campbell, who is returning to playwriting after many decades of a very, very successful career in Los Angeles as a screenwriter and as a showrunner. He's returning to theater with a play called Honoria Quietly Drawing Strength from Her Truth. And it's just very, very smart. And it's very, very funny. And that opens in April, on April 22nd. And all of our shows run for 4 weeks. We'll come back in June with a play called Malima's Tale. Malima's Tale is a really theatrical and stylized, beautiful, gorgeous piece of theater by Lynn Nottage. And it takes a look at the heartbreak of the ivory trade. And like I said, it's very theatrical. And it's kind of just a stunning piece of theater. So then we will come back in August with another world premiere, and we'll launch our season with a world premiere. And then we're going to follow it up with 4 more plays after that, all of which will be performed live and simulcast. And we're just going to be celebrating 20 years of Pure.
That's awesome. Lots of exciting things coming up by the sounds of it, which is incredible. And should people in the community should be excited about it as they hear that. And, so we're talking about these performances. And before we talked about also educating and being in the moment. But in addition to doing that through performances, Pure has a couple of programs I would love to learn a little bit more about. There's Pure Lab and then the Pure Youth Company. What can you tell me about both?
Well, I love them both. I really love them both. So the lab is where we develop new work. So, and there's really amazing things that are coming for the lab in 2020, or excuse me, our 20th anniversary season in 2022, 23, where we're expanding the lab and really encouraging broader participation, really encouraging people not to go ahead and self-select in as someone who's interested in telling stories for stage or for screen, and trying to really kind of energize the lab in that way, where we're inviting storytellers in at whatever level you find yourself. So I would really encourage your listeners to keep an eye out on information about the lab. But the lab is where we write primarily for stage, but we also do some writing for television and for film as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Our education company is, there's a couple different components. We have great partnerships. When we're teaching in schools or in after-school programs, we're in partnership with communities in schools. When we're teaching during the summer or we're teaching at our theater, we're in partnership with Gilliard Education. And it is for 7th grade and up. So we're teaching really in that middle and high school, and it's opportunities for live performance for kids to get on stage. And there are huge scholarships, pay what you will opportunities, so that we're really trying to make it broadly available to everyone to participate in.
That's awesome. And why was it important for you to create those two programs? I mean, you're already busy, I'm sure, doing the theater aspect and putting on performances and everything that goes into that. Why was it important for you to launch those two programs?
I think because truthfully, I believe so much in how life-changing personal creation can be in people's lives. By the time a child is in 3rd grade, they already have an opinion about whether or not they can draw. Instruments are expensive. Not everyone feels as though they should or can carry a tune, but everyone somewhere fundamentally remembers imaginative play. And that is really all theater is. It's just a little bit of formalization of your imagination and a presentation of that. I don't see a world for me in which creating opportunities for people to experience their own personal creativity in that way. I don't see a world for me in which I don't do that. It's a moral obligation to me that I believe so strongly in the power of our drive to create. And those are the ways that I can make that happen for people, by writing or by acting or by just being around it.
It's really good points and very well said. While you're talking about that, it kind of reminded me, number one, during the pandemic, I think a lot of people were reminded about how important certain forms of entertainment were, whether it's TV, movies, books, plays, theater, et cetera, et cetera. And we were all kind of drawn to specific things at the same time that kind of helped us escape, but also some programs that helped us deal with what was going on. I don't know if you've read the book or saw the mini series. I immediately was thinking of Station 11.
Yes, I read the book and I've seen Station 11.
Nice. It's such a good series. I hate to say I'm one of the people who didn't know about the book and didn't read it first, but the series was very good. And I'll be honest, when I first saw it, I was like, wait, this is a post-apocalyptic world.
By pandemic, right?
By pandemic. And we're focusing on a group of a traveling theater. I was like, what is this? And then after watching it, number one, it was great, but also it was showing that even in this world, there were people who decided in this world where everything was essentially gone and systems had broken down, that theater was important to keep alive, to keep imagination, to keep people's spirits up and to bring it around. And I just thought of that as you were discussing this, the pandemic and how important it is and how everybody can relate to it. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that. I don't know if that hits home with you or not.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some moments, like I said earlier, I'm trained as an actor, and I will definitely act commercially if I win a part, for sure. But I direct predominantly, and I've been and identify as a director, and especially a director of new work and a developer of new work. for the past, 15 probably years, that's predominantly what I've done. But there are moments in Station 11 that are just so exquisitely well done that it's just breathtaking. Some of those performances are just astounding.
They're amazing.
And I just think the whole series just, it just really kind of hit it home on a really, really personal level. Yeah, it's terrific.
Yeah, I figured there might be, if you'd heard of it, I'm glad you have, that there might be some tie-in. So, yeah, I think for sure it shows the importance of theater, even in the most dire of circumstances, and how it can help, even though it might seem like, oh, we don't need entertainment, we need something more important right now. But it really is, it's just as important as some other things in life.
Absolutely. That beautiful ordering of expression, of self-expression, the ability to be lost inside a story, to be transported to a different place. All of that is so inherently what makes us human. It's essential.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Essential.
The arts, whatever your chosen may be, whether it's music, theater, TV, I mean, it makes life worth living a lot of times,
Absolutely.
It's one of the best parts about life is the arts. And again, everybody, there's some things you might be into and might not be into, but there's some form of the arts that, really speaks to everybody. And speaking of that, for arts, if they want the art of pure theater to speak to them, what is the best way for people to stay in the know, buy tickets, and also support the theater outside of just, buying tickets? What's the best way for everyone to learn more and be involved?
Well, there's a couple of ways. We definitely have a strong social media presence, and I would encourage everyone to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Pure Theater. Our website, puretheater.org, has all the information about how you can get involved in the work that we do at Pure, whether it's as an audience, whether it's as a donor. All of those things are very much needed. And information on our programs where maybe you can exercise some of those muscles. Maybe a young person who's interested in studying theater, or maybe you have a play that you are dying to start to put down on paper. I think there's opportunities there, and I would just encourage everyone to make sure that they're visiting our website, signing up for our email list, and following us on social media.
And we'll have the link to puretheater.org in the show notes, so you can go ahead and check those out after this show wraps. And I encourage everyone who's listening to go support in any way they can. And before I let you go, what is anything that we didn't cover today, or anything that's upcoming, anything that you think is important that you want my listeners to know that we, like I said, that we just didn't cover so far?
No, I mean, I think that you definitely hit all the high notes about Pure itself, and I'm just excited to continue to welcome our Pure champions back into our theater as we all come out of this pandemic. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to meet some new folks, see some new faces.
Yeah, hopefully after hearing this, we'll have some more faces going to check out shows. I know I'm excited to come see something, especially after learning more about you and what you're doing at Pure. And I really enjoyed this conversation. It was so nice getting to know a little bit about you and Pure Theater. So, Sharon, thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you for having me.
And that's it. Thank you so much to Sharon Graci for joining me. Be sure to look into all things Pure Theater. Thank you so much for listening. Another awesome week here in Holy City Sinnerland. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, whatever you need to do to make sure you're getting this show every single week in your feed. And also spreading the word helps out. You can also support Holy City Sinner at holycitysinner.com/shop to pick up some merch. You can go to patreon.com/holycitysinner to sign up for different levels where you can support the website, the podcast, and everything else I do in regards to this Holy City Sinner project. And also want to say thanks to the same old folks week in and week out. Lindsay Marie Collins for producing here at LMC Sound System, and her podcast is F&B Radio. We also have Grace Lancaster Gogan, who created the logo for Holy City Center Radio. And of course, the magnificent Tyler Boone for providing the music you hear in each and every episode. And as always, thank you to all of you. Look forward to speaking with you all next week. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week whenever you are listening to this. And as always, good night and good luck.